if you have a daughter, please encourage her to date during university.
That
I'm
is
like,
so
that's
interesting.
the best time to date.
Can you talk to my dad? I should talk to my dad. Hi everyone, welcome to Hatch and Hustle, a podcast where we talk about everything entrepreneurship, startups, and share our crazy experiences. In today's episode, we'll be talking about dating at work and office culture.
Ooh.
And I'm so excited because we have a very special guest with us to share her extensive experience with love. So, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, hi guys. Thanks for having me. So my name is Violet Lim. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lunch actually. I'm also sometimes known as Chief Cupid.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's
That's such a cool title.
Chief Cupid.
Yeah.
Yes, so have been doing this for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
We have 6 locations. We are in Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Thailand, and most recently Taiwan.
Wow.
Yeah, we have sent out more than 150,000 first dates.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Across.
Yes,
okay.
across.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. And we focus on basically helping busy working professionals find love.
And how does that work? How does lunch actually work?
Okay, so the first step is usually we'll meet them up in our office. So it's one-on-one to find out a bit more about who they are, what they are looking for. And from there, if they feel that we are a good fit for them, and we also feel that we do have matches for their profile as well, then they will become a member. Once they are a member, we'll start doing the matchmaking. Yeah, so on our part, like we actually do the vetting, we'll do the curating of matches. Basically, we do everything. Like we always tell our clients, like, we do all the work and you have all the fun.
Wow.
Yeah, so once we find a match, we will, of course, inform both parties about it. And then if they're okay with it, we'll go ahead and book the restaurant or the cafe. And then it is a blind date. So I think that's something that sometimes people are very surprised about in this day and age where, like, on dating apps, it's all about swiping and looking at photos, right? But the way we do it is that ultimately people who come to us, they are not looking for like something casual. They're not looking for like one night stand, right? So they are really looking for someone that's serious, someone that they could potentially spend the rest of their life with. So what we are saying is that we do not want people to just judge like the other person just based on the photo. Like we want them to really meet the person in like, entirety to really to judge from there, like the personality, the character, and things like that. So after they go on the date, we'll contact them again to get their feedback, to know how they go, what do you like, what do you not like. And from there, we'll go back to the matching board and find them their next match. Of course, sometimes, they're really happy with it and then they're like, okay, you don't need to match anymore.
We don't need you anymore.
What is it called? Lunch, actually.
Lunch.
Is it not dinner or supper, actually?
Dinner date, actually.
So that's a very good question. So how I actually even come across this business idea or even decided to do this was that I was working in a bank and I saw that a lot of my colleagues then were all single and not dating. And I was thinking to myself, okay, that's very strange because bankers being bankers, so better I know like you used to work in the bank.
Yeah.
So,
lunch dates,
bankers being bankers are all like, eligible, attractive, So
Thank you.
So I'm like, why are like so many of my colleagues single, right? Then I realized it's because they work really long hours. But what I've realized is that they always have time for lunch because it's kind of like a midday break.
Oh, that's
So it's like, why not just take like maybe one lunch hour, like once a week, once a month, and meet someone that you have never met before. And I think the thing about lunch is that it's like short, sweet, and simple. Because sometimes with dinner, it's like, after you order like appetizer, you're like, okay, I don't think this is going very well.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna escape the situation. And there's still like, sorry, I'm going to work. Sorry, it's not you, it's me.
Exactly. So it's like, it's short enough for you to really get to know the person better, to see whether you want to continue to like meet again.
So Violet, I believe that you are married to your co-founder.
Yes.
Tell us more about how that happened, and also should we start a business with our partner?
Wow, okay, that's like a very loaded question.
It is. We go straight into the point because we think about it all the time, right?
Yes. I think for my husband and I, we actually met at university. We met in school, and then after that, then we were both working like in different companies. And then when I came across this concept of like lunch dating and then I shared it with him, then he was very excited as well because like he was also working in a bank and he could really see how this would work.
Wow, he saw the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when I first told like my friends, or especially like my very close girlfriends, that I was planning to start a business with like my then boyfriend, right? they are all like, oh my goodness, don't do it.
Yes, I'm sure.
But of course, we didn't listen to anybody's advice. And I think for us, it worked because we are both like very sticky people. So like, despite like having like started this business now for like 19 years, and then we have been married for like 18 years because we got married a year after we started the business.
Wow.
Like, we're very happy to just kind of like sit beside each other at work. Like, we go to work together, we like come home together, and like most of the time, like we have lunch or like dinners together as well. So I think in that sense, like it has worked for us. But I know of people where they are like kind of like they sit at one corner and like their spouse sit in another corner. Like, just let's sit as far away as possible so
like,
that we don't.
they're totally different people
Yes.
at work and then at home,
Yes,
right?
yes, they're like so that we don't kill each other or something, right? So I think on that note, like it's important to know like ourselves and also to know our partners as well.
Actually, I have a question, right? Because as VC investors, we actually see it as an amber flag. Because what happens if like, the relationship don't work out,
It's
right?
an additional risk factor that
Yeah.
you're not sure whether you want to take.
Yes, it is. And so when you speak to investors or you
Yes.
speak to your stakeholders,
It is.
how do you answer to them?
Do you even tell people that you're a couple or you hide it?
I think you have to lah. You cannot hide lah.
It's something that's I think very open. I think like people already know that like we are a couple and like it's kind of on
the
the website.
First
Yeah.
2 years. In the first 2 years
But
of
he
the
has a very good point.
Yeah.
It is true. I think a lot of VCs see that as a challenge. And I mean, of course, like things go well, they're like very good, right?
Yeah.
But what if things don't go well? And honestly, you have read about like couples breaking up or even like entrepreneurial couples breaking up. I think for us, it's really just about finding the right VC or the right, like investor who believe that this makes sense. Because I guess to a certain extent, like us running a dating company, matchmaking company as a couple, like it's nice as well.
The story is very alive.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it is a challenge, but there are some VCs that believe that it is an advantage.
And I think VC sometimes they also put some proper barriers.
Yes.
If let's say the romantic relationship don't work out,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
how do you unwind or who does what in the business?
Yes.
So I think maybe you're right in saying that having these more forward-looking VCs
Yes.
will be definitely better partners lah.
Yes.
What do the rest of you guys think? Do you think that people who are very close to each other, be like a best friend or a spouse, should they go into business together or not?
So in my current company, my current business, one of my first hires was actually my best friend of 9 years. And she's great, she's great. She's a wonderful friend. But I remember in the first 4 to 6 months of officially having her on the team, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And I was constantly asking myself, do I want to, prioritize, save the friendship rather than, continue on this route of working together. But what really helped us was when I just sat down with her, because I'm the boss, so I have to be the one to make that step, right? But in friends, you're kind of like, who makes that first step? You don't know.
Yeah.
But I recognized that I had to be the one to sit down and be like, hey, babe, we're great friends, but we need to figure out this working thing together. And I'll tell you, we took a couple of months to really figure it out. There would be times when I would speak a little bit more firmly, I think as, leaders of the company would, and she'd be like, you sounded like you were scolding me. And I was like, no, that's not what I meant. So I had to ask myself if there was something worth investing the time in, because we have to be realistic as well. But to me, it was. And I think anyone who does business with friends or even family have to kind of go through that conversation to really kind of hash things out. And she's been
I think it's a
wonderful.
double-edged sword, right?
It is.
You really have your shared experiences together. You trust the person a bit more. You know the working style. So in that sense, I think it's a plus. But the minuses is that, how do you work those things out?
Yeah.
And personally, I think being able to communicate, like, hey, I'm going to do this. This is my level of expectation of commitment coming in, and having things kind of drawn out quite clearly is quite important. But if you're not able to do that, I'd rather you just, keep it as friends.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's definitely easier to start with a partner because you really have a common background.
Yeah.
You know each other's strengths and weaknesses and so on. So in the short term, I think it's very beneficial. In the long term, it's where I think it gets a bit complicated because in the long term, people can change. A lot can happen in the mid to long term. Then you really have this dynamic and you might have to end up really sacrificing that relationship or the business, either one, because it's, intertwined.
I remember the very first business that I did before the fashion startup was this rattan bag business. And how it came about was me and my ex-boyfriend at the time went to Bali for a holiday. And then we saw these rattan bags being very trendy on Instagram in Singapore. And then it was being sold much cheaper in Bali. So the last 2 days of the trip was converted into a hunt for supplies trip where we went to warehouses, find supplies and brought it back. And then we launched it on Carousel as like an MVP. We did some sales and we did very well. And then we keep fighting about the different strategies. I was more for pro-growth, pro-scaling up, and he was more like conservative. We should keep our reserve, take some money home first. And then we fought. Business closed down. Relationship went down.
Oh no.
Which happened first?
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, so we decided to stop the business first, I think. We didn't start the business because we wanted to save the relationship, but by then there were too many friction points already, and then that also didn't work out. Also accelerated because of starting our own business together. So that was one experience. Even right now, I'm working in a media and advertising startup with a very best friend of mine that I referred into this job, and there are a lot of friction points as well. And I think some of the learning points I got from those is like your working style must be very similar. If one person is very hustle, willing to sacrifice time and blood, sweat, tears to work hard, and one person is more chill, let's take it easy, happy-go-lucky person, it's not going to work out.
Do you have to set boundaries between you and your partner, in work and then at home?
So I think because we are both in the same business together, like we don't kind of say that, okay, you cannot talk about like work at home or you cannot talk about home at work. Like, so we just kind of like let it be. Like sometimes like if we are in the office and then like we need to talk something about the kids, like we'll do it. Or like if we are at home or in the car, like the kids are there, like we need to talk business, we'll talk business. Yeah, but there are times where like one of us is like kind of like, that's it, no, we are done. Then we're just kind of like, okay, maybe today let's just not talk business for a while. So we will like communicate that with each other.
That's very interesting, because like how do you kind of stop the spillover effect? Like when you draw the line, right?
We don't even try because we just feel that it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel that if you can, like I feel that a husband and wife team or like like partners team works the best because like both of you are very aligned. So for example, like let's say I need to make an overseas trip like over a weekend for work. Like I don't need to feel guilty about it. I just can't tell my husband, okay, like I need to fly to Taiwan for this, and like, yeah, sure, go. I'll look after the kids. Like there's no like ill feelings or like why are you like sort of like going away for the weekend and then like now I'm like left with the kids. I have to do so much work. Like nobody will ever feel that because we are so aligned.
And
like,
you guys are working towards the same thing.
Yes, common goal.
So if something happens, like in your personal relationship, then at work the next day, what happens?
We are professional about it lah, because it's like, when we are at work, we still need to work, right? We cannot be like, okay, I'm so upset with like whatever he said last night about nothing to do with work. Yeah, okay. So we are still professional about it, but I mean like the spillover as in like we are quite happy to just talk about work at home and talk about home. And,
okay.
So what are some of your pro tips in resolving conflict, whether it's at home or at work, such that it's not damaging to the relationship?
Okay. So maybe I take it one step before that. Yeah. So I think like arguing and conflicts is very normal. Like I think be it at work or be at home. But the more important part is not so much whether you argue or how often you argue, but it's how you argue.
How, yes.
Yes. So there are basically like 4 things that people should like avoid. So one is like criticism. Because sometimes people, when they start arguing, they will start calling each other's names and things like that, right? Or the other one, which is like the very, very dangerous one, is like contempt.
Oh,
yeah. So basically, there's this expert from the US. His name is John Gottman, and he said that he can just listen in on like a couple arguing for like 10 minutes, and he can predict whether this couple is going to get divorced.
Wow. 10
Yes.
minutes?
Yes.
Is he statistically accurate?
Yes.
Wow.
And the
We need to
reason,
build a tag for that.
and actually it's not that difficult, honestly, because after like knowing his work, like I have like observed some of my friends. Like this is so bad, right? But then I kind of like, okay, this might not work, and unfortunately it's usually true.
Oh no, job hazard.
Because it's the content. Yeah, so there's definitely something to avoid. So like for example, like when my husband and I argue, like we always steer clear about these things. Like we don't like start calling each other's name. We don't like start assassinating each other's character, which is very common sometimes in arguments and conflict. And the third one is like stonewalling. Stonewalling, which is quite normal for guys to do sometimes, which is just kind of like, right? You just kind of build a wall, or you just like, okay, I'm going out, or I'm just going to the basement or whatever, right? I just don't want to talk about it. And last but not least is like defensiveness, which is always like, it's never like my fault, it's always your fault, which is never the case, right? Because it takes 2 to angle or two to like have that conflict.
Yeah.
So if we are able to like actually steer clear of these small things when we are arguing, be it in business or at home, like it would actually help us to have a healthier like conflict.
Looking back in hindsight, what if you already started a business and you realized that, hey, maybe working together is not so much a good idea, or maybe even the business itself wasn't really working out? What would be the plan B?
I mean, for me, actually, I have gone through like this in real life situation. I believe really just having all these like very hard conversations or very candid conversations. And I think for me, maybe it's easier because I am okay with confrontations, because I know some people are very uncomfortable with it and they rather like do anything to avoid it. But I think for me, it's like, let's just put everything on the table. Like I just, share like my piece, I want to hear your piece as well. And let's see if there's any middle ground for us to work it out. But if, it's not able to be repaired or like, to go further, then let's talk about how can we like resolve it, in an amicable manner. But again, I feel we didn't do this very well. Like I think the before part is very important, which I'm sure Violet will share like from like the VC, like the terms and things like that, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's super important. Like you can kind of resolve a lot of these conflicts even before you start it.
Yes.
Like what are the proper unwinding mechanism? I think in terms of what you just shared, being able to sell shares back to somebody at what price, who kind of determine the fair value of that price. I think you kind of state it out very clearly, and that's part of corporate governance. I think every founder should be thinking of that. That aside, all the technical and the lawyering stuff aside, it's about then bringing your attitude towards that negotiation. Like, are you ultimately putting the company before yourself?
Right.
I see so many founders, they're really very bitter. It's just trying to destroy the company. And then, it's just trying to snatch. And, it just becomes a very ugly and no win-win situation, right?
It's a bit like divorce.
It is.
Yeah, like when
emotional.
people just get so bitter and everybody is just upset, but they rather like be upset than to let you win.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, there you go.
So what are some things that you guys look for in a co-founder?
The first thing is really with regards to do you have complementary skills? So I think no point of being, having another 2 accountants in the room or 2 sales guys in the room, right? I don't think that works. And I think secondly is with regards to your working styles. I think to your point, have that conversation and have a dispute and see how we all work through that. I think thirdly is with regards to your values. It's quite important. How do you all stand on certain matters, your principles? I think those are the kind of key 3 things that, people should be thinking about when you're looking for co-founders.
I think alignment is the most important. You have to be moving towards the same direction.
Yeah.
Right? And that way you people won't have that feeling of unfairness. Maybe someone's not pulling their weight because everyone's already aligned. It's already a winning team at the start. Yeah.
So with that, when you are starting something with your close friend or a partner, how do you suss out each other first to say that they tick all these boxes?
You give them tests. You don't do that.
Do you like start something really small first, or spend more time with each other?
Yeah, I think
Go to a
doing
boot camp, accelerator.
small, accelerators, hackathons, starting like minimal, like MVPs. I think those are really good ways to kind of see if you are essentially compatible. It is just like a date, isn't it? Right? You go out for that first date, and however long that is for, however long you set that period, and then you talk about it, and maybe you notice some things about them that just don't work, and maybe it's a non-negotiable.
Travel together.
Oh my god.
Well, yes, maybe. So it really depends on what you're building, I think. But I think when we treat everything just like how you would look for like a partner in a relationship, I think that's a good sense, a good gauge as to whether that person can be your business partner without the theatrics of a relationship in it, of course.
I think 4 of us when we came together.
Oh yeah.
For Hatch and Hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did we suss each other out?
Yeah, it's actually super interesting, right? Because for me, Brian and Bennett, you both kind of reached out to me from LinkedIn, the powers of LinkedIn. And I remember when I got that email, I was like, is this real? I check the email account, and I wasn't too sure about how I felt coming into this, mainly because we actually did not know anything about each other apart from, what you've probably seen on my resume and what I've seen on yours. So that was quite intimidating to me. And my natural instinct was to actually just say no. Because I was thinking, like, do I really want to take that risk? What if it doesn't work out? I don't want to become enemies with.
Who's this random guy?
Yeah, like I was like, so many of these thoughts were coming into my head, but like, what made you decide to even, want to reach out to like?
Yeah, I think maybe Brian also can chime in. I think.
Oh yeah. So when Ben first slid into my DMs,
Right.
How to say that?
I didn't know this. I had no idea.
actually, yeah, this was Ben's idea to get this started. Right? And when he slid into my DMs, I was just like, who is this guy? I mean, no disrespect. I just do not know a lot of people. Like, who is this guy? Let me go and look at his LinkedIn profile. Legit or not? Then, oh, very legit lah. Okay, because I do get a lot of messages on LinkedIn, and a lot of time it's from non-legit people, and like, then I believe that I asked you a few questions first, because usually before I want to invest my time in a meeting or whatnot, I have to make sure that we are aligned on the same page, we're not going to waste both of our time, right?
Yeah.
So I think I asked you a few questions, and then you articulated what you had in mind, and so on. And then after we had a meeting, right?
Yeah.
To find out more.
Yeah. I think after which, we looked at saying that what is going to drive us and what is our passion about. And as we started mingling and knowing each other a bit more, we all realized that we love entrepreneurship and we are so passionate about it. So I think in terms of sussing out, I think we also had a lot of coffee sessions, drink sessions. But point being is that, through these different sessions, you'll be able to understand, hey, are we aligned in trying to build the same thing? So that's the first thing. And then secondly, we kind of also try to stress test ideas. Like, how do you take your ideas? And we don't want to have too much yes in the room. Like, oh, this is a great idea, because you want to kind of cross-reference and you want to hear all views and different experiences. So I think, all four of us bring very unique experiences. All four of us bring very different view of the world. And I thought that, being able to be so different yet the same was something that was really, that vibe that we have was really interesting.
I think all of us have different motivations of why we wanted to do this Hatch and Hustle podcast, but it was the same goal, right? And I think that's what's the most important, that we all know that we're gonna put time aside despite our busy schedule, and all of us have our own thing going on to do this. I think that was the most important. And I think secondly is also what can each of us bring to the table. If I felt like, okay, it's a room full of the same kind of people, what difference do I make just by being present, right? Then I feel like, wow, there's no value add. But I thought after having a lot of conversations, each of us brought different flavors and expertise into this. Yours was the media, the distribution, the investment lens, and I think mine was a blend of that. And Denise also knew how to do the creativity part of it. So it was a very good blend of different skill sets and talents. But I think the most important part was the cultural fit thing, right? Can we spend every weekend or hours and hours of shooting and planning and discussions together without getting bored or sick of each other? I think that's probably the most fundamental part of it.
I think one of the things that really encouraged me to even come on board was the fact that we are all equals. And I think, Violet, you mentioned this and how important it is that we view each other as equals. We come from very different backgrounds. So some of you have more experience than the age that I am, right?
Are you older?
I am, right?
Sure.
Which was great. And especially as a young person, that is very intimidating sometimes. I get afraid to share some of my opinions and my thoughts, knowing that you would have probably heard that 1,000 times somewhere else. And, but that was something that I think both Brian and Bennett reassured me at the very early parts of doing Hatch and Hustle, that we are all in this together, we are equals. And yeah, I was like, okay, I think that's refreshing. Unfortunately, that's refreshing because in a lot of other businesses and in a lot of companies and cultures, age is something that people take quite seriously as well. So yeah, I think we take quite a couple of
Dream team.
So how about at the start, before you even incorporated the business, lunch actually, did you have a sus check with your dad or boyfriend, to test out whether you guys could actually work in a professional environment together?
Well, I mean, it's just hearing from all your input. I'm like, okay, if I do it again next time, maybe I should do all of it. Interestingly, my husband shared with me is when he knew we could work together was actually during the time where he was rushing for his dissertation for his final year. And once he was kind of done, I'll wake up and then I'll kind of help him to spell check, grammar check, help him to just tidy it up. And then I'll go back to sleep, and then he'll continue and then we just kind of repeat that a couple of times, right? And that was then he told me like he knew we could work together.
Dang.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, that's pretty interesting. Like he was sussing me out, I wasn't, right? So,
But he was like, I think he probably felt that you were understanding.
Yeah.
He can be very occupied and you were very forgiving of that.
yes,
Even helped him.
yes.
And value added to his work.
Exactly. So I think like the alignment that we have talked about just now, right? Like okay, like he needed to make sure he get a good grade. You know, I was also aligned to help him to get a
You wanted the best for him.
yes, and then the value add like you have mentioned, you know, and then we obviously have different skill set. Like even until today, like I do have to like look through like some of his presentations, you know, like some of his emails. So yeah, so that has continued like 20 years down the road.
That's amazing though, because I think you are one of the rare folks who really have a very successful story. I have not been very, very lucky in that aspect. I was in a very recent relationship and I always mixed work in there, right? Because we met through a conference.
Yes.
So I was moderating something and he was a panel at a DeFi conference in Vietnam. And then I think it got very, very serious. It was fundraising and he said he's going to increase his capital commitment. And I was like, I'll do it too. Like if you're going to put in more money in a fund, I was very ready to be an LP of that fund as well. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But at the start, right, before like things went south, I thought it was very good complementary. I was on the project side, he was on the venture side. We could make introductions to each other. We had different sets of network as well. And we thought we're going to be like power couple in Web3. When the relationship didn't work out, I was like, well, thankfully, I didn't sign any term sheets or whatever as an LP. And thankfully, like we didn't do anything too public to damage our professional branding as well. So I was on the other fence where I was less lucky mixing relationship with professional life. But it's so inspiring to see that like stories like yours can actually happen. And I think for people watching over there, right, if they are thinking about it, it's like just try, right?
So, do founders have time for love?
Should we go around and find out?
Sure.
Oh my goodness.
At the start of my business, I did not have time for love. I was completely occupied. I was living in the office, in fact, for about 2 to 3 years.
But like living is in
Really?
sleeping in the office.
Yeah, I mean, back then the
my.
office was a lot smaller. Now I just think it's highly inappropriate if I do that. But back then, I think forgivable, given that we had like less than 20 people.
So when did you
After I think the business was kind of like somewhere was more stable, that's when I decided to give myself some time.
oh, so it was a very, very conscious decision that you did for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
things were going well and we were like, okay, maybe I can spend more time.
Well, I was also exiting another relationship at that point of time, and I just wanted to just distract myself from it and be completely consumed with work.
Yeah, same. I feel that.
So I was stonewalling myself.
Wait, Denise, you said same. So tell us about it.
I actually have never spoken about this like publicly, so this is gonna be interesting. But for me, I was very similar to Brian, very consumed with wanting to build my live streaming business. I had just broken up with my previous partner, and it was purely just because of the relationship, and I wasn't looking for anything. But I think with social media especially, you get more exposed to like a lot of different people that you meet for the first time. So I met my partner through the same live streaming platform that I was building my own business on. So I think I'm just very blessed in that sense. And now the great thing is that he is incredibly supportive of what I do. So he refuses to be like an actual partner in my company, probably for a lot of the fear and uncertainties as most people talk about, but he is very much like a silent, unofficial partner. So if I need help with my team, if he's the one that kind of comes in and helps me. If I need someone to read my emails or like help me to answer some things that I'm not too familiar with, he kind of comes in and does that for me.
So kind of like Violet preparing for her husband's dissertation.
Yeah, but the other way around. No, but creative-wise, PowerPoint presentations, it's all me. He's not gonna value add anything. Yeah, but that's for me. So I'm very blessed, very, very grateful for that.
Well, I mean, I'm engaged, and I just want to... No, it's tough work, especially if you're going to juggle relationships. So thankfully, my partner is very supportive. It was not easy setting up a VC fund from ground zero.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of times, my time actually is spent having dinners with her, but talking about business, dinners with her, but my mind was never there. But this is where I'm very thankful that she's so supportive. And to the extent, I think you can have time for love, but not a new relationship. I think if that relationship builds across that, and is maintaining, and you are trying to spend on the goodwill of the relationship, maybe. But if you want to take, a new fresh start, I think it takes a lot of effort.
That's really interesting because when I was at the very early stages of my live streaming business, and that was when I met my current partner. And actually, when we met on the first couple of dates, I told him, "Hey, I am starting this thing, and my work is a lot more public. I'm a lot more front-facing." And I told him that this is gonna be how my life is like. And it's either you can kind of like, if you're willing to understand how it works, then great, we're on for the ride. If not, then maybe this is not the relationship for you.
So I guess managing that expectation was very important.
Yeah,
in the early
we
part.
communicated very early on in the relationship, like what our intentions were and, like what we were looking for. And I guess that extra step as people running businesses is you have to say that I don't sleep sometimes, or I run a business and these are my employees and stuff like that. And once you get all of that out of the way, I think it really makes it so much easier in like moving forward in the months.
I think that's quite interesting because this year I incorporated an events business called 7 Events because I've been running events previously unofficially. This year started it on my own. And I remember one of the first date with my ex-boyfriend was like a nice restaurant in Dempsey. Halfway through the dinner, I have a client meeting because he was in overseas time, and my colleague and co-founder just scheduled it in my calendar. So I walked out, took a call, which I told him was going to be 20 minutes, became about 40 minutes. And in the middle of a dinner date. And it was like our first date. We met in our first date romantically. Previously, it was just like friends.
Right.
And then it got to the point where the waiter came over to him and be like, "Hi, sir, is everything okay? She leave?"
Oh no!
40 minutes.
And it's like, he was like, no, it's fine. She's outside taking a call. But like, I imagine that was very difficult for him. But thankfully, like, he was in the same boat in VC as well. He's taking calls all the time. When we're traveling, eating lunch, he's always on calls. So we just take turns to be tolerant of that. Like, although we don't like it for sure, but we kind of like have a lot of times where we are like in the same space but doing different things.
I think that's an interesting point because we are all talking from an entrepreneur standpoint, right? Can you imagine if you are there on the other hand,
that's true.
and you're waiting 40 minutes there? I mean,
That's true.
Your ex was very nice to give you a
Because I was tolerant of his calls as well all day.
okay.
But because we're both equally busy, it was easy. But I can imagine if that person is a 9 to 5 person, like doing a normal corporate job, he ends work at a certain time, expect just undivided attention, I believe it will be so hard.
so I think those who's thinking of dating an entrepreneur, you kind of just sign up and ensure that you're coming in eyes wide open, yeah.
But not a reason for us to give excuses as entrepreneurs, of course. Just gotta be fair about
that particular scenario, I thought like you could have probably rescheduled the date, or we scheduled one of them, but you definitely can't have two at the same time.
I'm the worst.
it was
I am the
strange.
worst. Violet, I need help with that aspect. I'll be the next customer. Sign me up. Give me the form right now.
We do always tell clients to say like, okay, if you're going on a date, like, please like put your phone away or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So Violet, can you just help us understand online dating versus offline dating? What are the nuances?
I think with online, it's very much like dating apps. Like you install an app and then like you put in your bio and then like they'll give you matches and then you start swiping, right? And then like if you like someone, you swipe right. You don't like someone, you swipe left. And then if the other person swipe right on you as well, it's a match. And then you can start chatting with each other.
Yeah.
And then after that, then you will probably try and suss each other out. And then after that, you will try and like, invite each other on a meetup lah. And then that's how it works. So that's online. I think offline, basically, it's like we do all of that for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a consultant.
Yeah, it's kind of like a concierge to a certain.
Concierge.
So yeah, so I think like we do get asked this a lot, like why you still exist when like online is just so much easier, it's convenient, it's 24/7, like that's like huge volume of singles, right? So I think like some of our clients who come to us, like for example, like let's say you are like a doctor or a lawyer, like BC, like 1 hour worth of your time, it's like probably like $500, $1,000 sort of thing, right? And then they're just kind of like, why am I using 1 hour of my life like swiping and chatting? And it might not get anywhere sometimes, right? So they're like, okay, I might as well just like use that time to make money and just outsource this very important part of it to someone who's professional. So
It's like deal sourcing in VC terms.
More like
How do you deal source
yes.
more? You pay an investment banker to deal source more
Yes.
effectively, right?
This is amazing because just last night I was just telling my friend, can I just outsource my Hinge profile to you? And you said I just arranged one date per week for me because I don't have time to chat with people, or like, can you chat GPT integrate into my profile? And I was like, we should invent it. And this was a conversation just last night.
It's a very real
solution.
Yeah, because I mean, like, again, I mean, not here to diss like online platforms because a lot of people have met someone.
Yeah, and it's also fun and gamified in some
but
sense.
it's just it's very time consuming. And then if you don't have time, or like after a while, like it becomes like a job or a chore. Yeah, so I think like people were just very busy, and then you just kind of like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. You go do the work for me, right? So for us, like we would go through the profiles. We would like make sure they are who they say they are. We actually ask for like education certs, like income.
How about
like,
bank accounts? KYC, are you an accredited investor or not? What if that's my criteria?
So
I mean, bank statement.
we do
Actually, do women ask that question?
Yeah, like a
salary.
certain high net worth.
Yeah.
So we ask
We got into the interesting part of it.
we ask for like their salary range, but we don't use that as like a matching criteria. So for example, like someone cannot come to us and say like, okay, I only want to meet someone who earns like, I don't know, like X amount a month. Like we don't do that because I mean, imagine you are the person who's earning this amount. Like you might not also want to date someone who only asks for that, right?
For sure.
Yeah, but of course when we are matching, we do match accordingly as well. Like we don't match like, like income brackets that's like just too far apart as well.
Why not though?
Yeah.
It depends on what people are looking for. So like certain people, they are like, yeah, like I earn this much, but I'm fine with like however much the person earns.
I think a lot of guys, right, they don't actually care about how much the partner earns.
I think the guy doesn't care, but the girls, they do care. Yeah. So like when with the girls, like I say, we say that we cannot say that we only match you up with a certain income range, but with the girls, we don't match too big the gap.
So what do the guys usually ask for? Curious.
What would you ask for? What would you ask for?
I don't know. Okay, I'm not attached. I want to ask for my wife.
Hypothetical.
Wife to be.
Okay, so the truth of the matter is like men are more visual. Right?
Okay.
That's one way of putting it.
Physical appearance is definitely one of the more important criteria for guys when it comes to like dating or meeting the right person.
Right.
Yeah. But of course, like I always tell them, I say like we are running a dating service, like we're not running like a modeling agency.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, if they come in and just say I only want to date supermodels look alike, then also a bit challenging. Yeah, but I would just say that first impressions like matters a lot more to men. So it will kind of be like, okay, within like the first, I don't know, like 5 seconds, like 10 seconds, like if I'm not attracted to this person, it's really quite difficult to continue to like, have that date or even like to even imagine like, I'm going to have a relationship with this person. So I think that's for guys. Like for ladies, like I would say thanks to Korean dramas, like ladies are also placing I think like more importance on like looks as well. But usually I think ladies would give like more time to kind of get to know the person better, to then decide like, okay, do I want to continue? And on the financial part of it, I think it's not so much on like how much the guy earns, because honestly, like women earn a lot of money now. They are very successful. It's more on like how confident the guy is, and also how they carry themselves, or like how motivated they are to like make progress in life. So I think those are the like things that are important to a woman.
Do you have profiles who are entrepreneurs who just don't have enough time?
Definitely. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of like like high level like professionals and things like that. So a couple of years back, we started having this other tier in our membership, which is called curates. So it's like hit hunting for love.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Oh,
So and a lot of the profiles that come to us for this curate model are like entrepreneurs. So they are very clear about what they are looking for. And sometimes like they have this idea that maybe who I'm looking for might not come to you as a member. So like I would like you to like maybe source.
wow.
Actually,
What?
I heard a myth, right? Saying that it's more women paying for this service. Is it true?
For our offline like lunch actually service, like it's not a myth. Like offline services all around the world, there are more women. Online services are more men. So for dating apps, right, it's 70% men. Offline service, I mean for ours, like we make a lot of effort to keep it at about like 65-35.
Right.
Yeah, but honestly, there could be some dating services out there. It could be like 90% women. The reason for that is because like what we are offering, it's very attractive to women, because women know that we have met up with each and every person that they will be meeting. So that helps to like, know. I mean, you can get 100%.
No creeps
yes,
around.
because we already have like kind of like meet them. And in a way, like people who's joining a dating service, that's already like filter.
Yes.
Because if you're not serious, like there's so many ways to meet people. Like why would you like invest? So that is also something that's very attractive to women as well.
I also think that sometimes like online dating services, there's a lot of like fluff. And fluff is the nice word that I'm using. But
fluff is one thing, but like girls want to avoid all these people who are looking for something casual. So it makes sense, like for your business. For sure.
Obviously, like running Lunch actually for 20 years has given you access to a lot of very interesting data. Right? So what are insights that you can share about our dating culture in Singapore?
I would say that prior to starting a dating service, like there were a lot of things that I didn't know, and like once I got into it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is crazy, right? Unfortunately, like, you know, sometimes like I think media kind of say that, oh, it doesn't matter, like, you know, whatever age you are, like it's the same. It's like not true, like completely not the same. Actually, for like women, like from about mid-30s onwards, like it was really quite challenging for us to help them to find suitable matches. The challenge is that because like women at about mid-30s, they are usually very successful. They are doing very well in their career. They are very educated. And as a result of that, they are also looking for someone who is like in a similar level or status as them.
The smaller sample size.
Yeah, so I would say then at that point also, they are not looking to date someone who's like too, like way older than them. So like they are maybe looking at like 5-6 years maximum. So we are looking at like maybe up to 40. Like, you know, even up to 41, 42, they are kind of like, no, too uncle. And but the challenge is that like men who's like maybe between 36 to like 42 are potentially like the most sought after men. Like everybody is targeting that age group.
interesting.
And obviously the men, they also know that like they are in a very good position. So they have a lot of choices as well.
So basically, those who are 35 have to compete with all the other age groups, the 25-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, for the most eligible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. And actually at one point, I feel very bad about it. Honestly, when I first started, right, like we have to actually turn away people. Like this is such a strange business. Because it's not that we do not want to help them, but we know that we do not have people to match them with. Because that's when we first started. So I'm like, okay, this is so bad because these are like people who really need our help. They are like looking to settle down, but we do not have the people to match them with.
So how, if you're really in that category, what's the best chance?
Like, is it also about changing the expectations of this group?
Yes, definitely. So, okay, thankfully, like now that we have been around for like close to 20 years, like now we do have people in a lot of different age groups and we are better able to like help. But okay, let's say, if you find yourself in such a situation and like you say like expectation is very important. So I always ask people, I say it's like, you know, when you have a certain expectation or criteria, like please examine like why do you have that criteria. So for example, like for girls, like height is a big thing. 20 years ago, like the ideal height was 1.75 meters. Right? 20 years later, it's like 1.85 meters. Again,
high inflation.
Drama.
What's wrong with that? I mean, it's inflation, right?
The Korean boy spoiling the market.
Korean one spoiling the market, right? And then I'll be like, ladies, do you know what is the average height of Singaporean man?
1.71.
Thank you. Yeah. So 20 years
research.
ago, it's 1.71. Like 20 years later, now it's slightly taller, 1.73. Then I'm like, 1.73 and 1.85 is a big gap, you know? and then I'm like, okay, so how tall are you? I mean, it's like, if the girl is like 1.8, I get it. Like, what, if you're 1.55, why do you need a girl who's 1.5?
Yeah, the parallax area is about the same.
But my point is, right, I just bring each criteria back to like, okay, you are looking for a long-term relationship, right? You're looking for like a partner for life.
Yeah.
Like, does this criteria actually make that this person is a good father or a good husband?
Right.
Usually the answer is no.
They tell them it's good to have, but it's not a must have.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's kind of like how we work through it, right? And then back to the very successful women. It's like, okay, if you want a guy who is equally successful or even more successful and you want to like really go for your career, then who's going to look after the kids?
Yes.
So just try to like change their paradigm a bit, you know, like just set it all on the table. Like
To be more open-minded.
Yes, what is most important to you at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do you know what helped me with that whole idea of I need a taller
And
partner?
you're so
'Cause
tall.
I'm pretty tall.
You're like 170.
I'm 174.
174. That's crazy.
So I remember like watching supermodels, and then I would see like their partners and their husbands, and they're like way shorter. And then I was like, oh, Yeah, yeah. And I was like, it's okay. I know it sounds so silly, but small little things like this really kind of changed my perspective when I was looking for like a person. And eventually height was like one of like the least like important criteria.
Actually, I'm super curious to know like what's the craziest dating story. Like to me, like, I've been waiting for this part.
He's like, gonna jump on his feet already. Violet, tell me everything.
Yeah.
There are different stories lah. Okay, so like
The wildest.
Yeah, the craziest you heard.
I think like it was this one where they went on this date and then like it went really well. You know, it's like the guy really liked the girl really liked the guy, and then you're like, wow, this is going like so well, right? And then they found out after like talking a bit more that the girl is actually the colleague of his ex-wife. And it just kind of went downhill from there. Because I mean, obviously,
Colleague of
it's
your
like
ex-wife.
the ex-wife like would have said certain things about the ex-husband, right? So imagine like you're talking to this person, you're like, wow, you know, this person is great, blah blah blah. And then when you realize that, oh, this person is that person, and
And the
then
impression changes because you hear all the dirty stories already.
yeah.
Oh,
At least she already
no.
have like this particular
Bias,
impression, right?
yeah.
Bias, yeah. So obviously, like the guy didn't blame us, like because we wouldn't have known, right? Like how do we know like this person is the colleague of the ex-wife? But that was quite a pity, lah, honestly. Yeah, because they just got on so well and things were going really well.
Oh, tough.
Yeah.
Like we have had like we make a match and then again like because when we make a match we'll make sure at least like the guy is like what the girl is like looking for, like at least 60 to 70% and the girl is also what the guy is looking for, up to 60-70%, right? So you know we've gone through like this whole like massive like effort to like arrange this date, and then after that we present the match to the girl and then the girl kind of like, no, I don't want to go on this date. And then we're like, why not? And then she's like, I don't like his name.
Oh.
And then we are like, don't.
What would be your advice for? Because I see a lot of females right now are taught to have a successful career in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
And as a result of that, there are some who really give it their all, and focus on their careers, and their love life takes the back seat. And you end up having people who are highly successful, right? And they hit their 30s, right? But they haven't paid much attention to their love life. What will your advice be for these people?
Okay. So I just want to say that it's very possible to have both at the same time. And I think I have been very blessed to have met like role models like when I was younger that kind of showed me the way. So personally, I started a business at 24 and then got married at 25.
Wow.
Had my first kid at 26.
Wow.
Had my second kid at 29.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
kind of like before 30, I'm kind of like done, right? In that sense. So I mean, I just want to share that this is perfectly doable. It might not be easy because in a way, like in 3 years, my entire life changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so worth it because like now I'm like 43 and like my son is 17.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just so awesome, right? So I think like finding the right partner is very important. What I always tell young parents nowadays is that I say, okay, if you have a daughter, like please encourage her to date during university. I'm
is
like,
so
that's the
interesting.
best time to date.
Can you talk to my dad? I should have met you and I should have talked to my dad. What?
Okay, ask all the universities to like come and like
Yeah,
find.
that's-
No, but it's really like, if you meet the right person earlier in life, because that's where I met my husband. We met at university, right? And then we dated for a couple of years and then like we got married and then started a family. Like it is totally doable because like as people like get, I mean I can't blame them as well. Like women have told me, they say that I've spent like so much time studying, like I want to make sure I build a successful career. I don't want to like kind of like let them like go to waste, right? But what I'm just trying to say that it doesn't need to. And in fact, I have like many like role models who are now like in their 60s or 70s. Like some of them even took some time out of work, to like start a family, and then they went back in and they still have very successful careers. Because I think career is something like, as long as you're smart, like you constantly, upskill yourself, you keep the connections going, you can go back. But like finding a partner or like starting a family, it's not as easy to just kind of like just go back and pick it up from where you want to.
I think there's like misconception, especially amongst like women who are in relationships, to then need to feel like they have to become like a caretaker role. And that means that they can't be, like can't move forward or progress in their careers. But I think
yeah, it's not true. So
Yeah.
as in, like, for me, right, like I have only cooked like my husband like one meal. Like throughout our entire relationship and marriage. I know it's terrible.
It's having like aligned expectations of each other, right?
No, it's like I think we were dating, and then I cooked him one meal when we were at university, and that's it. Like I've never cooked ever again. Like I think he has cooked for me a lot more than I have for him, and I think he's perfectly fine with it because I think he wasn't marrying like a chef, one day.
Right.
So I think like for all the like women aspiring entrepreneurs out there, like don't see it as you need to kind of like do things like one at a time, which I think maybe sometimes is a very Singaporean thing. Like okay, you must like study hard, get good grades, get a good job, then only like think about
And then
finding
only
a
fulfill
partner.
these roles, for example.
Yeah, like it can be done like all at the same time.
So that answers the question. It is possible for founders to have enough time for love.
Yes,
Right.
just
First
cancel
question.
it into your schedule.
Literally put it as a calendar.
Yes,
right?
like
yes.
dating time. Yes.
Yeah.
Lunch actually. 12 to
Don't
1.
arrange
Yeah.
long meetings during your dates.
Yeah.
This is actually, I was just thinking and processing this as you were explaining this, right? I wish I met you early because a few days ago I made a bet with somebody that I'm not going to date seriously until Christmas. If not, I owe him an omakase meal. Because if I'm
That's
like,
such an interesting match.
yeah, literally like everything is happening in the last few days. Because if I was dating someone, like seriously, right, the lowest can be so low that I can't function at work. And I remember just like last week when I was interviewing someone for an internship position, my mind was not there. Like I was like legit broken and I really can't focus as with the rest of my work day as well. Because the lowest can really hit you, the lowest part, like say a fallout with your friendship or anything else, it's not gonna be so bad that it's gonna ruin your productivity. So I told myself I'm gonna be hyper productive until Christmas. And I'm not gonna see each other, no, see anyone very seriously. But I mean, like now that you gave your perspective and like your story, and I think like it is possible, right? If you can manage yourself well and you believe that, okay, you can also see something long term together, I think it's 100% possible.
So happy to hear that.
So when you talked about how your headspace was not of that at work, right? Because of the relationship that you're going through. What do you think about dating in the workplace? What if, for example, a relationship does not end well and you have to see that person every single day?
Actually, I'm on a mindset, like, especially within a company, I wouldn't eat where I shit. In the same industry, I think okay. But just because you're not just thinking about yourself and like the awkwardness within that relationship and things didn't work out, but look at everybody else. You put your colleagues in a very difficult position where they have to pick sides. And imagine if all of you guys click and you go lunch together as a company or a department, right? If things don't work out, I think your colleagues are put in a very tough position where they have to be either team Van or team ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
Which is, and I haven't been through a situation where I dated a colleague, but I've seen that same situation arise with friends of mine in the same block, in the same hall back in school.
I think it's the intention, right? So in my industry, a lot of people actually like to date each other, like creators, streamers, because that's very appealing. Brands want to work with couples that are together, or if you're both streamers, then making content together is like just a whole lot of
marketing,
fun.
and there's so many campaigns that can come out of that, right?
Yeah. So, but some people, they go into relationships with that mindset. Like, I want to date this person because they are a streamer and I'm a streamer.
That's toxic, man.
Well, I wouldn't say it's toxic, but I think they just have this idea of like that being the dream, right? And if that is kind of the perspective that they have, I highly do not encourage it. I think, yeah, having the proper conversations really do help assess whether that is the right decision to make. But I think love is love, as cliche as that is. You find it when you find it, you find it. When it finds you, it finds you.
So basically, it has setting the intention right.
Yeah, you have to have that right. Like,
I mean, it's totally opposite in my industry, right?
yeah.
It's like conflict of interest.
Is it in like the contract?
Yes, some of them is in HR policies.
Oh wow!
Like, can you imagine, like, you are a boss and then you are dating your employee. Then your employee get a promotion.
Okay, when you say it like that,
yeah,
kind of
that's true,
weird.
though.
Okay, when you put it like that, I
And
guess.
then like this employee gets the promotion, gets the bonuses, then like even if it's through her own merit,
Yeah.
who will believe?
Right.
That's true.
Right.
Right, and then like within sometimes departments you have this called China wall in investment banking. You can't actually share information, but how do you ensure that you don't share that
don't talk.
information? Yeah, you don't talk at night, right?
That is true.
Well, that's really.
So I
that's
think
really
it's like a taboo, and in fact, it's in some HR policies that you can't date within the firm.
Wow, that's a whole other
I
world to
heard
me.
But it's tough because
Yeah.
like what happens if you're not dating, then you're dating, or either you're dating, then you're trying to go into the same
the
firm.
sequence.
Yeah, that brings out a lot of complexity as well.
Wow.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So for TSL at first, when we first started the company, we didn't have any policies in place, so everything goes,
So
basically
did
that's
it
when we-
happen? Did things happen?
so that's how we learn, Okay, but anyway, there was a point where this guy and girl who were in a relationship, it did not end well, but they're still working in the company. So at that point, we're like, whatever. They really don't have a
Just
sense.
stay department or
Well, at that time, our company was very small.
Yeah.
So everyone knows everyone at that point, right? And it was very difficult on one of the people inside the relationship who did not move on yet. Well, and we didn't want that to then repeat itself, because it's so difficult, you have to go to work and face this person which you don't want to face. And that person might be seeing someone else already.
Yeah.
It's really, really painful.
Yeah.
So we're like, after that, like, okay, I better write something in the policy. Okay, no dating in the office. That is our kind of like our guideline.
Okay.
People still do it anyway. I think if you have a very positive culture, people are going to form bonds with each other, and eventually they're going to get closer to each other. That's how these will turn into a relationship.
Yeah.
So it's not something which can ever be, enforced, stopped, right? But it's something that we cannot encourage for sure. But we tell people, if you do end up in a relationship, just let HR know. It's very important because we want to avoid the situations that it brought up.
Yeah.
Right. So immediately once HR knows, there are a few things. First of all, the reporting lines cannot be direct. Right. The person has to be in a different department. So there's no communication, no conflict of interest, no people talking about outsiders and whatnot.
Yeah.
Another thing which has to happen, I think Benny brought out the part about this awkwardness with this couple and this everybody else, right? They can't be acting like a couple in the office. Can't be like, go to the pantry and make out or holding hands one corner. No. Yeah, could you imagine that you are a colleague in doing work hours and nothing else? If I look at the relationships which have flourished in the office, because there are some relationships like that, they're actually professional about it.
Wow.
They act like different persons doing work and outside of work, and they don't make anyone feel uncomfortable. They even have a separate Telegram channel, which is all PSL work related stuff. So that's more than work related stuff. If they ever cross paths at work, and then there's everything else which should have no personal chat. So they define a very clear boundary.
Wow, that's really cool.
I do feel it can work, but you have to do it very specifically to make it work.
I'm taking so many notes as to like from a company perspective, like how you manage that. Because like my company's really small, and that's not something that I think about. So thank you, Brian. I'm just gonna take some notes.
Let's go copy the HR policy.
Violet, within Lunch actually as a company itself, besides dating in the workplace, are there other effective policies that help maintain and boost the workplace culture?
So there's something that we did like quite from day one. So it's actually my husband's idea. So we have something called the purple coin.
Oh,
Yeah, because like everything in our company is purple.
nice. And your name as well.
Bias lunch.
Exactly. So the how it works is basically like they get rewarded for like micro things that they do. So like for example, like they help out a colleague even though they are not supposed to, or they like go the extra mile for a client, or like they just do something good lah. Because the challenge I think sometimes like in a workplace, like people only get rewarded like during like appraisal time, or like it's so long, right? And sometimes people forget about it. So when we first started like almost 20 years ago, like it's a physical coin. Like so we'll get all these like purple buttons, and then everybody kind of have like a piggy bank. Like it's like super old school, right? And
So
then
cute,
they'll like
though.
go into the piggy bank. But of course as time goes by, when we expanded the business like across like different places, very difficult like to account for like piggy banks and like
For
purple
sure.
buttons, right? So we actually now end up like doing it digitally. So we actually use Slack for work. And then we managed to find like a app or API that like helps us with this. So it's actually
that's
called Karma. Yeah. So but we still change it and we call it Purple Coin. For example, like someone did a really good match, and then like the client is really happy, and also the manager will like just kind of like give like all these micro coins, right? And then they can kind of use it to get things. So for example, like they can use it to exchange for like movie vouchers, book vouchers, or they can like get time off, like extra lunch hour, or like extra half a day off, things like that.
Wow.
And like it really helps to create a very positive vibe, because like people get rewarded all the time. Like people are being seen as doing good things, and then like through seeing other people doing good things, you are encouraged to do like good things as well.
Right. And that was an idea that your husband had at the very start.
Yes, at the very start. So
Wow.
like we have been doing it for the last 19 years. Like
Wow.
just from like the very old school piggy bank now to like online.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it comes to building a positive culture is dependent on two main things. First is the policies which are in the company. Second is the people. When it comes to the policies, I feel that the company should do their best to create basically a safe space for employees. So when they come into work, they don't feel like they have to go and watch their back or fend off some sort of gossip, right? And this is directly affected, I feel, by policies and also the people that you let into the company. We've done some, I think, quite interesting things when designing our office. So, for example, one of our policies is to have a very big space for eating. You know, instead of filling it up with more desks and more people, we said, okay, I don't want people to have their food and walk far away and have it in the heat, right? I want them, essentially it'll be nicer if they come back and eat in place. Realize also is because people bond over eating.
Right.
That's a time where they actually spend time with each other talking, right? So we wanted to create that sort of environment. And of course, there are other things that we'll do if we believe that, there's going to be some positive benefit. For example, we might have lots of parties at mid-year. There'll be a party and then there'll be a party. We want to have a chance of people to go and mix around and mingle with each other. We also, sometimes people get the request that I don't get to meet people outside my department. So we created this thing called like a lunchies. So every month you get paired up with like random people, and it's optional. You can choose to go, you can choose not to go. But there are actually a lot of things being done behind the scenes now, which I don't know if people ever realize it, but it's designed specifically to try and facilitate building a positive culture.
Right.
For the people side of things, I think that sometimes even though we go through so many interviews with somebody, you can never 100% know whether the person is a correct fit. And a lot of the times it's about treating, that probation period as like an extended final sort of interview. Because I think it's always better to just hire slow but fire fast.
Agreed.
If a person is not a good fit, then you have to do something about it because it's going to affect everyone else in the team. They might think it's unfair. They might just feel that, why have you made this decision?
I'm a big fan of that. All right, so we've covered the entrepreneur's view. How about from an employee standpoint? How can you actually improve your working environment and culture?
This is something that is easier said than done, but I think a lot of companies haven't really over communicate yet. And I think as an employee of current firms and previous firms before, I think it's okay to just overshare and over communicate than to not. For example, if I'm going through some issues at home with my family, or if I'm facing some health issues and this time I need more support at work, even though I'm not like BFFs with my colleagues, I think it'll be more beneficial than not just to share like I'm going through a lot of things, I need some help, I need an extended deadline, or maybe can you help me look at this instead and reply to this client instead. Then to just be a bit more MIA or just work a bit differently or not show up as much and give people room to guess. So basically it's just to reduce that gray space, right? Where people know like what you're going through, and most of the time, even if they're not like good friends of you, they'll be more than empathetic to like help you.
Maybe just building on that. Sometimes it's okay to be vulnerable at work. It's always okay to say, hey, can you help me out? Like we always have this perception that, you gotta come on and you don't gotta know everything. But point being is that if you are sharing and being vulnerable, then people can be vulnerable back with you.
Yeah.
So it's way better to over communicate than it is to under communicate.
Agreed. Yeah.
Going back to the point which Violet made early on, the part about 4 essential rules for a relationship, right? Criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. I think that this is not just something that you reserve for your partner, but it should be a foundational rules for every relationship, right? That you should, if you are not so quick to criticize and try to go and see the bigger picture before they jump to conclusions, right? They are not quick to be negative or have contempt or criticize. And I think if essentially both sides view people with that more empathy, relationships will just be a lot better.
For sure.
I think when it comes to culture, I always believe that it has to be set from the top. It's very much like the founder's vision of what that culture is, and of course the people within it as well. So I feel it's very important as founders to hold that space so that the employees know that what they would be appreciated for and what they can contribute. Because I think sometimes we forget how it feels to be employees. I'm not sure about you guys. The last time I was an employee was 19 years ago. And I think sometimes we just forget how much people sometimes fear losing their job or being berated by their bosses and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think if you just kind of keep that in mind and create a culture where it's very open, it's very transparent, it's very compassionate, where people can just kind of be vulnerable. You imagine it's us as the founder, us as the entrepreneur, and really being vulnerable, and sharing our true feelings. Then they know that, it's okay for me to do that as well.
So role modeling that period.
Yes, I think that's really important.
So just now we talked about the 4 things to never do in a relationship. I realized when you guys were talking there also, you also highlighted 4 things to do in a relationship which were direct opposites of this. So for example, instead of stonewalling, you're encouraging communication. Instead of being defensive, you're encouraging being vulnerable. Instead of having contempt, I think rather you said compassion, right? And of course, instead of criticizing, we should praise people, right?
Good job.
So, 4 essential keys to building a positive relationship, right?
How did you piece that like on the spot? That's not even like
natural
scripted.
advantage,
Oh
natural
my gosh. Yeah.
Wow. Violet, as an entrepreneur and a relationship expert, what is one final advice that you want to give people who are seeking to improve their relationships in the workplace and also in their personal lives?
This is the same advice that I really give to singles as well. I think number one is really the mindset. Yeah, because ultimately it's like when we have a positive mindset, like everything just goes much better. Because imagine like you wake up, oh, things are so bad, like the rest of your day is just going to be very bad. So similarly, like if you're dating, it's like you have a positive mindset, then, that's just going to go better. And then the other part of it is like, I would say like, just don't let one setback and just keep you thinking that everything is just going to be bad.
That was really good advice, Violet, on how we can manage and improve our relationships in the office and also in our personal lives, and even with friendships and relationships. Thank you so much for joining us at Hatch and Hustle, Violet. And where can our audience find you?
You can find us on lunchactually.com, or you can follow me on Violet Lim on Instagram as well as TikTok as well.
Awesome. If you enjoyed today's episode, which I did, don't forget to give us a like and hit subscribe. And also comment who else and what else you want to see in our future episode. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.